All right, here we go. So today we're going to talk about stop thinking small. Stop thinking small. So this topic came up on a conversation. We talk about this a lot, but Neil and I were having a conversation the other day, and he was talking about a conversation he was having with an agent of thinking small and money and stuff like that. And we're thinking too small, which got me thinking about something Mike Ferry talks about all the time. He always talks about thinking big. And he had mentioned before, this was one of the times, because he's been on our Zoom a couple times. One of the times he was on our Zoom, I forget which one, he said the biggest problem real estate agents have is they don't think big enough. They're thinking too small. And in a lot of cases, I would happen to agree. But we don't even know that we're doing that sometimes because we're just in the motions of doing the work, doing the job every single day. So what I wrote down here are a list of thoughts on how we can stop thinking small and or things that we're thinking too small about. And hopefully you can take a couple of these points and they'll click and say, you know what, that's right. I am thinking too small in this area. I need to think bigger. This is how we'll expand. Others of these, they might not affect you. But again, I'm just looking for the 1 or 2 points here that really hit home. Because remember, if you can make one improvement a week, or if you can work on one thing a week, over the course of the year, you would then improve on or work on 40 to 50 things. Now, if you worked on or improved 40 to 50 things in your business and your life over the course of a year, would you be better? Yes. So sometimes this entire list doesn't have to make sense, but it's that 1 or 2 things. So there's no order of importance of what I'm going through here. This is just how they're written. So let's just jump into it. So point number 1 on thinking small, I have to give credit to Armin Martinez on this one, because he brought something up on Friday. We were watching the Muhammad Ali video, and he brought something up that was a really, really good point. And I added that to this list. So kudos to him, full credit to him if he's paying attention. So I wrote down here thinking small. Thinking small is thinking about the other agent. Thinking small is thinking about the other agent, not the client. So here was the example we talked about on Friday. We watched the video of Muhammad Ali's top rules for success. And I'm a big boxing fan, have been for years. And Armin was talking about how he got to watch Muhammad Ali box and watch some of the fights and things like that. And he was talking about how Muhammad Ali would get in people's heads so bad that when the other fighters were going to the ring, they weren't even thinking about their game plan. They weren't thinking about their skills. They just wanted to beat this guy so badly. I mean, they just wanted to kill him because of just how boisterous and confident that he was. And because of that, because they were focused so much on him and not the plan, not the end result, not winning the fight, he would just keep beating people up because psychologically they were messed up. And it was the same thing with Mike Tyson. I've used this example before. For any of you that have ever had the privilege of either watching live or going back and watching Mike Tyson fights, the fight was over before the fight happened. Different than Ali, where these guys were mentally not prepared because they wanted to kill him so bad. The Tyson guys were mentally beat before they got in a fight because they weren't focused on the fight. They were just scared. And what would happen, and they were on their skills, they weren't focused on their plan, they were just trying to run around and survive. And that's why most of Tyson's fights only lasted about 90 seconds. The fight was over before it started. So when you're in our business, when you're thinking about the other agent involved, when you're thinking about competing against another agent that they might be talking to, a friend or a family or another local expert, when you're thinking about them, you're not sticking to your plan. You're not sticking to your standards. You're thinking too much about the other agent. That's thinking small. Thinking small is thinking about the other agent. You have to think bigger about, I'm trying to get the listing. Because the listing is the bigger thing. So thinking just about the other agents, thinking small. I wrote down here, winning is not beating the other agent. Winning is getting the listing. Winning is not proving how superior you are. Winning is providing amazing customer service. See, when you're thinking too much about the other agent, your presentation is about the other agent. This is why I'm better. This is this and this, this and this. Instead of just proving why you have such great customer service, and the client will be doing a disservice if they don't hire you. You're focused too much on the other person. This happens in politics all the time. Politicians just focus too much on the other politician. They don't focus on what their skills are or what they provide. And usually the politician that does that loses. This is why you shouldn't pick that person. It's not about the other person. You're thinking too small. I wrote down here, thinking small in this case causes you to lose later. So what do I mean? Well, you don't get the listing because you're not sticking to your plan, you're not sticking to your skills, you're not sticking to your standards, so you won't get the listing. Just like those fighters didn't beat Muhammad Ali, just like those fighters didn't beat Mike Tyson. The only time anyone beat those two guys was when they didn't focus on the fighter, they focused on their plan. Evander Holyfield wasn't concerned about Mike Tyson. He just wanted to stick to his plan. Joe Frazier was concerned about Muhammad Ali being boisterous. He just stuck to the plan. So you won't get the listing, which means you don't get the referrals from that client, which means you don't get the repeat business from that client. You don't get the sign calls from the listing. You don't get to promote your listing or sold on advertisements, social media, anything along those lines. So by thinking small now and just going after the other agent, you're losing big later. It's not about the other agent. It's about the client. It's about the listing. Stick to your standards, stick to your plan. Don't focus so much on the other agent. Second thing I wrote down here on stop thinking small is you're thinking about little money, not big money. Thinking too small is thinking about little money, not big money. So what do I mean by that? Some of you might be newer to the company and we say, oh, you have to work with a mentor and the mentor fee is this, and you fight it. Well, I don't want to pay the mentor fee because you're focused on the little money. I don't want to pay that fee. You're focused on the little money, not the big money, and becoming a great agent. We still get all the time, oh, you know, God, Century 21 Masters, can you do anything about those Century 21 fees? That 8%, that franchise fee. You're focused on little money, not big money. See, little money is focusing on the franchise fee. Little money is focusing on, oh, we pay E&O monthly, not per transaction. Instead of the big money you can get by following the system. Best example of that is Mark and Al. Mark and Al had their own company, their own brokerage. 750 grand. Their own brokerage. Didn't have to pay any fees, franchises, nothing like that. They had their own brokerage. Making a very great living. But they were focused on big money. So when they came to Neil and Neil put together a plan for them, they knew that Neil could take them from here to here. And it was going to cost them a little bit, but they were focused on the big money over time. Here they are 21 years later. Doubled, sometimes almost even tripled what their highest business was before they started. Because they weren't focused on the little money. They were focused on the big money. Sometimes we're focused on little money instead of focused on big money. I wrote down here on focused on little money, sometimes you're not willing to pitch in $1,000 to save 12 grand. Case in point, you have a deal that's falling apart. You have a deal, for example, that's $10,000 apart. The buyer and seller are apart and need budging, and you're not willing to do anything about it, or you're willing to do too much, which is a different story. And you, in potential, are going to let the deal fall apart for your pride. Instead of saying, hey, there's a buyer, there's a seller, and there's two agents. We're $10,000 apart. Everybody kick in $2,500. I'm getting paid 12 grand on the deal. Here's 2,500. I'll walk away with 9,500. You other agent, you're also getting paid 12 grand. You kick in 2,500 bucks. Buyer, you come up 2,500 bucks. Seller, you come down 2,500 bucks. We just made up the $10,000. We don't think about that because we're like, oh, I want my full commission. Well, you're going to lose a $12,000 commission because you don't want to pitch in $1,000 to save the deal. You're thinking about the little money, not the big money. It's thinking small. Because guess what? If that deal falls apart, how's that client really thinking about you at that point? Again, you're losing the later business, the repeat business, the referral business, the just sold business. Stop on little money, focus on big money. That's where it's at. I wrote down here next, third thing on thinking small, thinking you can only work one price point. Thinking you can only work one price point. We run into this all the time. You hear me say this for those of you that have been around me for any period of time. We have agents that if the price is $999,999, they walk in confident. I can get this. I can sell this. Let's go. But if that price went up $1, which then caused an extra comma to come into place, and instead of 99999, it's now 1 million. It's like, whoa, now it's $1 million. Am I $1 million agent? Can I sell $1 million home? Can I sell a luxury home? Write this down. There's no difference between selling a $500,000 home and $1 million home. There just isn't. Now, $5–10 million, yeah, maybe you got to do something really special, Twilight open house or something like that. $1 million, $2 million, to Southern California. You shouldn't have the mindset that, oh my gosh, this price point is too big. Somebody has to. Why not you? I don't know if you know this, but as someone who worked in Beverly Hills for many years, I can tell you this. There are some agents that sell multi-billion-dollar homes that are not any good. True story. There are some agents that have $1 million, $2 million listing right now that have no idea what the hell they're doing. All they know, they can walk into that house and confidently, oh, I'm the one for you to sell the house. See, we're thinking too small that, oh, no, I don't want to go to the million. I'll stick to the 500, 600,000. I wrote down here, the higher the price point, the higher the commissions. The higher the price point, the higher the commissions. But we think small by thinking, oh, I'm going to stay down here. I don't want to play up there. Somebody has to sell the $1 million home. Somebody has to sell the $2 million home. There's no reason why it can't be you. You know what to say. You know how to say it. Thinking small is, well, the Mike Ferry script doesn't work on those clients. That is a lie. Somebody go ask Ed Kaminsky, who sells $10 million homes on the Strand in Manhattan Beach. So the Mike Ferry system works. Oh, the Century 21, thinking small. Century 21 is not a luxury brand. Okay. Somebody go tell Jeanette Salazar, who's sold 2 $5 million deals in Newport Beach. Her and Sonia and those gals. Okay. Somebody tell the Scalios, who just closed a $7 million deal. Somebody tell August, who's closed multiple deals over $5 million. Thinking small. You can only work one price point, either because of your skills, the company, the Mike Ferry system, whatever the case may be. That's thinking small. You got to start thinking bigger there. I wrote down here next, number 4. Thinking small is thinking you can only handle a certain number of leads or deals at one time. Thinking you can only handle a certain number of leads or deals at one time. I wrote down underneath this point, handling multiple deals is a mindset issue more than anything else. It's a mindset issue more than anything else. If we're being honest, can I be honest with everybody here? Okay. I say that and 5 people are going to drop off. Okay. If we're being honest, you tell yourself you can only handle a certain number of leads because you don't want for more. That's thinking small. It's a mindset issue. You tell yourself, oh gosh, I can't do more leads than this. I can't do more deals than this at once because you don't want to go prospect for more. Don't get mad. That's just, it's a mindset issue. I wrote down here, in most cases, being overwhelmed is usually creative avoidance. Oh, Robert, I can't take on any more deals. I'm overwhelmed. Typically creative avoidance, that you don't want to go do more work. Because I wrote this down here, okay? Write down these numbers. 20, the number 20. And then below 20, write the number 8. And then below the number 8, write the number 160. So write 20, below that, write 8, and right below that, 160. 20 is typically how many working days there are in a month. Some months are more, like August this month has 22. Some months sometimes are shorter, maybe they have 19, but typically you have 20 working days a month. 8 is, let's say you work 8 hours a day in real estate. And 160 would be how many hours you work in a month. So 20 working days, 8 hours a day is 160 hours a month. So let me ask you a question. In 160 working hours, is it really hard to manage 2 deals? The answer is no. It's hard to get 2 deals. Getting 2 deals is hard. That's hard. Managing 2 deals in 160 hours is not. That's what I'm talking about. Thinking, well, I can only handle a certain number of leads, a certain number of deals. You have 160 hours in a month. If you did 2 deals a month, that's 24 deals. Folks, 24 deals, that's a lot of business. At some of your price points, you'd be rich. Actually, at probably all of your price points, you'd be rich, because I don't think we have anyone who's selling land out in Ojai. So, I think on all of our price points would probably be rich. And that's 2 deals a month. Getting 2 deals is hard. Managing 2 deals isn't. Being overwhelmed is, again, usually creative avoidance, because you don't want to prospect for more. You don't want to practice more. That's thinking small, that you can only handle a certain number of leads, a certain number of deals. No reason why you can't handle 4, 5, 6 deals. Now you have to work your way up to it. Right now, for those of you that are handling 1 deal a month or 1 deal every couple months, handling 5 deals at once seems intense. So you handle 1 deal a month, and then 2 deals a month, and then 3 deals. You build up from there. I wrote down here, thinking you can only handle a certain number of leads. Well, then just get rid of your bad leads. If that is true, that you can only handle a certain number of leads, and I do agree, there is a breaking point where you're not following up on your leads enough, then get new leads. Throw away the crappy ones if you can only handle a certain number of leads, which I agree with. Don't hang on to the bad ones. It makes no sense. But it's thinking small that you can only handle a certain number of leads or deals. The next thing this is number 5 on thinking too small, thinking that you have enough money. Thinking that you have enough money. So here's a question. If your water heater bursts right now, do you have $10,000 to replace it without stress? Some of you do. Some of you don't. Don't get mad. That's just being honest. It's amazing how many times I'm honest and I see the participant numbers drop. That's called not being coachable, but you all are, so we're going to keep going. Let me be honest. Numbers 33, 32, 31. I don't want to hear him be honest. All right. If your car breaks down and you need to get a new one, can you make the down payments and the down payment and the new payment without stress? If your spouse loses their job, can you support the house without stress? And I'm not talking about just having the money to do these things. I'm talking about having the money without added stress. For some of you, yeah, you have the money. Yeah, you know what? I got the 10 grand, the water heater breaks, that's life, you do it. Some of you, if the water heater bursts and you need $10,000, you're going to freak out. I wrote down here, just getting by is not okay. Just getting by is not okay. That's thinking small. I'm just getting by. Yeah, this is fine. We're living paycheck to paycheck. Our bills are paid. We're not delinquent. Just getting by is not okay. That's small thinking. You have to think bigger. I wrote down here, if you do have all the money for those things, if the water heater breaks and you have the money to pay it, no stress, great. If the car breaks down, you need to buy a new one, no stress, great, no problem. If you do have the money for those things, you still accept the fact that more money is better. Because even if you're comfortable, you still might be thinking too small that more money is better. The vacations are better. The restaurants are better. The house is better. The school district is better, depending on whatever your lifestyle is. Thinking that you have enough money is thinking too small. You have to think bigger. There's much more out there in the world. There's 50 states. Go see them. I mean, I understand that Arkansas probably is not the most exciting thing compared to California, Florida, Hawaii. I get it. Go see the 50 states. Go see all these other different countries. There's something out there to see no matter where you go. Okay? But thinking that you have enough money causes us to think bigger about what the other possibilities are. I wrote down here, thinking small is thinking that your background will hold you back. Thinking small is thinking that your background will hold you back. So what do I mean by that? Well, I wrote down here, there's no gender requirement to be a great real estate agent. As a matter of fact, typically the females are the better real estate agents. Case in point, most of our centurions are females. Just is what it is. Okay. So I'm not being sexist or anything like that. That's just the reality. There's no gender requirement. For years, females in our country have been fighting for equal pay. And in some cases might still be fighting for equal pay. Well, in real estate, it's equal pay, baby. So there's no gender requirement for you to be a superstar real estate agent. I wrote down here, there's no age requirement. There are agents that in their 20s get their real estate license and they're off and running and they're making a really good living. And there's agents that are in their 70s, 80s that are still trucking along, prospecting, making really good money. And every age in between. There's no age requirement. You're not too young. You're not too old. There's no age requirement to be a great real estate agent. I wrote down here, there's no language requirement. Some of you, English is not your first language. It's not your second language. It's not your third language. Some of you, English is your first language and you still don't speak it very well. That mainly directed at me. Okay. True story. In high school, I took 3 years of Spanish. I got A's every semester in Spanish all throughout high school. And I couldn't get anything higher than a C in English. True. Okay. So, but there's no language requirement. Oh, English is not my first language. That's okay. What do you speak? I speak Mandarin. Okay, great. Go nuts. Have a good time. I speak Spanish. Plenty of that in Southern California. Have a great time. Go nuts. Well, I have an accent. Oh, give me a break. Come on. This is Southern California. Everybody's got an accent. Even if you're from here, you have an accent. Language barriers are a problem. There's no language requirement to be a great real estate agent. I wrote down here, there's no location requirement. You could work anywhere in California and make a fortune. And if you don't believe me, I'll find an agent in your area that I guarantee is making a hell of a living. And I wrote down here, there's no experience requirement, meaning that you don't, have a previous sales experience. So let me here. Melinda, are you listening? What was your job prior to being a real estate agent?
A theatrical stage manager.
All right. So yes, very, very in line with being a real estate agent.
I had lots of sales skills.
Patty Billings was there for a second. She just left. I was going to ask her next. She was an artist. You know, I don't have the sales experience. Robert wasn't born with this kind of stuff. My parents weren't people. Who cares? There's no experience requirement. We think small by thinking my age holds me back, my gender holds me back, my language holds me back, my experience holds me back, where I'm located holds me back, thinking small. You've got to get out of that mindset. It's crushing you. There are no requirements. That's the beauty of being a real estate agent. Nothing holding you back. Nothing. I wrote down here a couple more points on thinking too small. Thinking too small is thinking you need to lower your standards to compete. Thinking small is thinking you need to lower your standards to compete. So, an example, I wrote down commission immediately is not a skill. Cutting commission immediately is not a skill. It's really a surrender. It's a sign that you don't provide any value. It's a sign that you don't think you're as good as other agents, which again is thinking small. Now, do we have to cut commission sometimes to get the deal? Yes. I'm talking about cutting commission immediately. Well, will you do it for 1%? Sure. Advertising that you'll do it 1.5% total. It's not a skill. It's a surrender. I don't provide, you're raising your hand saying, I don't provide any value. I'm not nearly as good as other agents in the marketplace, but I'll lower my commission to make up for it. That's thinking small. I wrote down here, taking listings way overpriced is not a skill. The truth is, in my opinion, I'm not talking about slightly overpriced where it's like, let's see what happens. I'm talking about way overpriced. Like I mentioned earlier on the role play, there's a listing on my block. There is no shot in hell it's going to come anywhere near what it's listed at. And I would love it if it did, but it's not going to happen. The truth is, when you take a listing way overpriced, that's not a skill. Actually, it's a blatant lie to the seller. And in my opinion, it's seen as malpractice. That you're taking a listing way overpriced. That's thinking small. Oh, at least I got the listing, even though it's way overpriced and I'm not going to get it sold and I'm not going to get any leads because no one's going to come to the open house, but I got the listing. Give me a break. Thinking small. Lowering your standards to compete is thinking small. I wrote down here, people don't respect the discounter or the pushover. Now the discounter and the pushover are going to get so often, but they're not going to get respect from the client. They're not going to get a bunch of referrals. They're not going to get rave reviews. You're thinking small for one deal. You're not thinking big for a lifetime of deals. Remember when Neil interviewed Deb Sizek, was an agent from Nebraska, and she was talking about how when she first started, she was cutting her commissions immediately. She was actually going in with a low commission and then cutting it even lower. She was painting people's houses. She was offering movers, all these other things. And then Mike sat down with her and realized all of her commission cutting was cost her about $500,000 over the first few years of her career. $500,000. That's a lot of dough, especially in Nebraska. Not thinking big enough. You don't need to lower your standards to compete. You need to work on your skills. You need to work on your value. That's thinking bigger. I'm improving. I'm getting better all the time. All right, 2 more points here. Thinking small. Thinking small is thinking that you have it all figured out. Thinking small is thinking that you have it all figured out. When I started this talk, there were 34 people here. There's down to 28. So 6 people have it. That's very good. So glad my services are not needed. I'm so glad Neil doesn't need to worry about those 6 people that left already. Thinking small is thinking that you have it all figured out. Remember Dave Abdallah, who I think everyone should listen to multiple times, one of the masterminds that Neil did. High energy, great guy. And he was talking about how one of the things that's kept him successful over the years is the fact that he's continuously learning. And he had a quote that said, if you think you know everything, you're actually really dumb. If you think you know everything, you're actually really dumb. Lose 4 or 5 people for saying dumb. But that's the truth. Thinking you have it all figured out. That's thinking small. I wrote down here, why do rich people read more books than poor people even after they're rich? Anyone else ever figure that one out? Why do we constantly hear about rich people even after they're rich, reading more books and doing more things than poor people who are trying to make more money? Because even the rich people know they don't have it all figured out. That's probably how they got there to begin with. You have to constantly be learning. The best example I have, I've shared this before, is Karen Bernardi. I had the great privilege of sitting next to Karen Bernardi at the production retreat a couple years ago. Now, for those of you that don't know Karen Bernardi, she's like the Michael Jordan of real estate. This is a gal in Colorado that over her career has made about $60 million commission, not in volume. So I asked her, I said, Karen, you know, at this point, she was at like 50 million. So I said, you know, you've made like $50 million. You've been in business for 30 years, selling hundreds of homes a day at an incredibly high price or year, incredibly high price points. Why do you keep coming? Why take the week off to fly from Colorado to Vegas? And why? Just curious. And she said, because if I'm not surrounding myself with big thinkers, if I'm not constantly expanding my mind to what Mike is saying, my business will plummet. That's what she said. 30 years in the business, $50 million in commission. And she's telling you she's got to constantly expand her mind. She has to constantly be learning. She has to constantly be around big thinkers. You have to think the same way. Karen Bernardi doesn't have it all figured out, and I would think she's got it all figured out. When you think that you have it all figured out, that's when you're thinking too small. You have to constantly think bigger. We're constantly learning forever and ever and ever. And the last thing I wrote down here on thinking too small is thinking you need to set small goals so you can hit them. Thinking small is thinking you need to set small goals so you can hit them. I wrote down here, the problem is not that we set big goals and miss them. Okay, a couple times. The problem is not that we set big goals and miss them. The problem is that we set small goals and hit them. The problem is not that we set big goals and miss them. The problem is that we set small goals and hit them. We set the goal too small because we want to at least feel like, oh, I hit it. I accomplished it. But by doing that, typically when we hit the goal, we either stop or go down instead of what could have happened if I had just kept going. Idris Elba, actor, talked about this when he was working out. He was working out for a film. I forget which film it was, but he had to be really fit. And one of the things he was going to start doing was swimming. So his goal, he didn't set a goal. He just, I'm going to start doing laps. I'm going to see what happens. And in his mind, he admitted, you know what, I'll probably be able to get to 15 laps. That was what he thought in his mind. So he just kept on. He wasn't counting laps. He was just going and going and going and going and going. And he had somebody there tracking him and so forth. You know, when you're in water, you should always have somebody tracking you. He had somebody tracking him. He's just going and going and going. And finally he comes up. and he asked the guy, he goes, all right, so what am I at? You know, again, thinking he's hoping maybe at 14, 15. Guy said, you're at 25. He didn't think about, oh, my goal is 15. My goal was as many as I can do. And if he had set the goal at 15, as he said, he probably would have stopped at 15. But he just said, I think I might be able to do 15, but I'm going to try to do as many as I can. And he ended up stopping at 25. It's the same thing in our business. We set the goal too small and we hit it, and then we stop instead of setting the goal big. And if we miss it, we miss it, but we're going after big goals. But I wrote down here, here's the thing though, you have to be somewhat realistic. Otherwise, if you're not realistic, then it doesn't work. But if you're realistic with it and you go after the big goal, that's a different thing. So case in point, like Jordan Belfort, the guy who, the Wolf of Wall Street, he was talking about, you know, if he says, well, I'm gonna match, my company's gonna match Warren Buffett's company this year. It's like, well, it's stupid to do that. You know, that's not a realistic goal. That's not a big goal. That's fantasy. So you have to be realistic. Okay. If the most deals you've ever done in a year is 5, you can't say, all right, 100 deals this year, let's go. I'll push you. I'll try to get you to, but it's just not going to happen realistically. So set a big goal, but it has to be somewhat realistic. But don't go too small. The problem is not that we set big goals and miss them. The problem is that we set small goals and hit them. Look, thinking small is, as Mike Ferry says, is one of the biggest problems we have in real estate. We're not thinking big enough. To get big results, you have to think big. You have to think bigger. You have to want bigger. You have to dream bigger. And all these points we talked about, these are the ways that we're focused too much on the small things. We have on the bigger things. Don't get caught up in the little stuff and miss the big stuff, because that's what happens. You get caught up in all the cycle of the little things. Get out of it. Think bigger, want bigger, not small. We want big money, not small money. We want big price points, not small price points. We want big deals, not little deals. That's the key. No more small thinking, only big thinking. All right. Questions, comments, concerns on anything I had said? No? All right. Well, for those of you that stuck, hopefully that was useful.
Robert, what are the first 2 points? I forgot, I missed it.
So point number 1, I give credit to Armin Martinez on this one, because this is something he mentioned on Friday. I thought was a great point. Is thinking small is thinking about the other agent, not the client. And then number 2, thinking small is thinking about little money, not big money. So in a nutshell, number 1, thinking about the other agent, we were talking about this on Friday, and Armin brought up a great point about Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, about how when people would enter the ring going against Muhammad Ali, they weren't focused on winning the fight, they were focused on him. And because they were focused on him, they didn't stick to the plan, they didn't stick to the skills, they were totally thrown off, they were mentally out of it, and he just ended up beating them up anyways because they weren't sticking to the plan. Mike Tyson was the same thing. People would walk to the ring and the fight was over when they were walking to the ring because they were just scared. They were only thinking about him instead of their game plan, their skills. And because of that, they lose. It's the same thing with us. If we're thinking about the other agent that they know,
不用不用，
other
谁
agents
先
they're
先
gonna
都一样，
interview,
反正我是代表买的双方的，没关系啊。
I might just be talking to myself at this point, but
No, very true. We're listening.
so we can't focus on that. Okay. So there you go.
I'm listening.
Thank you, Armin. All right, everybody, that's all I got. Again, hopefully there was 1 or 2 good things in there. Stop thinking small. We got to think a little bit bigger, and we're going to keep rocking and rolling from there. So good job this morning. Let me stop this.